After a distinguished career in the armed forces, he was ready to discover what the next chapter of his life had in store.
He always loved kids and wanted to do something that would make a difference in his community.
He fell in love with teaching.
And he also fell in love with a beautiful coworker.
He was a hopeless romantic. He felt like he found the one. They were going to live a life happily ever after.
But their fairy tale ending gets cut short by an unexpected tragedy.
She just found her husband unresponsive.
She had suspected there was some foul play.
We went like this, and we went.
When police launch their investigation, they'll discover a sophisticated killer who will do anything to evade justice.
She said she got a phone call from an anonymous number. It was a male voice.
All I heard was, ask them about Tennessee.
She believed that he may have been poisoned.
We were totally shocked.
This crime was planned out and premeditated.
But the true extent of their plan was still unfolding.
They tried to recruit somebody to kill a key witness.
Hey, listen, something happened to your friend.
The judge said, I have never witnessed such a stone-cold person. It's disgusting.
September 9th, 2000, Montebello, California. It's a quiet evening in this charming community located just a few miles from the heart of downtown LA.
Montebello is a completely different world when it comes to the greater Los Angeles area. It's kind of more like a suburb area.
Many families come to enjoy some of the peace outside of being in the city.
But at 3 a.m., the peaceful night is interrupted when local resident Angelina Rodriguez makes a desperate call to 911.
I just found my husband on the floor and he's not breathing. I need help right now.
To 911 operators, it's clear time is of the essence.
Police were immediately dispatched to the home.
When first responders arrive, it's just as Angelina claimed. Her husband, Frank, is completely unresponsive.
They found him on the side of his bed, as if he had collapsed while trying to get up.
Do you know how you ended up on the floor?
I don't know, I just found him like that.
They do everything in their power to try and provide first aid, to try and resuscitate him, but Frank Rodriguez is pronounced dead on the scene.
Time of death, 3:19.
Oh, God.
I'm so sorry, man.
Frank.
Navy veteran Francisco Frank Rodriguez balanced his strong sense of responsibility with a gentle spirit.
He was kind. He would never hurt anybody, and overall, just a person that everybody wanted to be around. Frank was the man.
Frank was also a devout Christian. His religion and living out his faith was very important to him.
He didn't smoke, drink, do drugs.
In 1996, after a successful 10-year career in the armed forces, Frank decided it was time to pursue his true calling.
He always loved kids and wanted to do something that would make a difference in his community. And he felt that working with children, he can make a large impact in young people's lives.
So when Frank secured a job at a private school in California's Central Coast, he was overjoyed.
He landed a teaching job in San Luis Obispo, teaching at Angel Gate Academy.
Angel Gate is through the National Guard. It's a program for troubled youth that needs some rehabilitating.
So when they came there, Frank would teach them basically life skills, how to get out of trouble, make a life for yourself, and teach them how to be a person instead of what they were doing on the streets.
And for the first time in his life, he found like he really, truly found his purpose.
But purpose wasn't all Frank found at his new job. He also found love.
We still on for dinner tonight?
Absolutely.
He started dating a fellow school employee named Angelina Morales.
She worked somewhere in the kitchen area, serving food. He thought she was beautiful.
Angelina was also a devout Christian, just like Frank.
He saw a woman who was just as much passionate and in love with God as he was, and Frank fell hard.
Well, I'm gonna let you get back to it, and I'll see you later.
Sounds good. I'll come get you as soon as I'm done with these papers.
They seemed to really be in love. Frank was always looking for his love of his life, and they seemed happy.
After a whirlwind romance, the happy couple tied the knot in April of 2000, just 3 months after they met.
Frank and Angelina may have moved fast, but they were so in love they couldn't bear to wait any longer.
Shortly after they got married, Frank also received a new position in Los Angeles.
The couple picked up and moved 200 miles south to the LA suburb of Montebello.
The two of them are headed to the suburbs to build this life together.
But just 6 months after saying I do, it appears Frank's heart has stopped beating.
Angelina found him unresponsive on the floor of their bedroom.
Time of death, 319.
So sorry.
At first, no one is sure how Frank died.
There was no obvious lacerations. There was no obvious abrasions.
Was it a medical emergency that claimed his life? Maybe a heart attack? A brain aneurysm?
But Angelina insists it was something else.
Somebody did this to him. This was no accident.
Angelina Rodriguez had suspected there was some foul play possibly in her husband's death.
She was pretty sure that somebody had poisoned my brother.
In the fall of 2000, 41-year-old Navy veteran Frank Rodriguez was living a comfortable suburban life with his new bride, Angelina Rodriguez.
It seemed like things were very promising and that they were going to live a life happily ever after.
But now, Frank has been found dead in the newlyweds' Montebello, California home.
He didn't have any visible injuries or signs of foul play.
Was it a medical emergency that claimed his life? Maybe a heart attack? A brain aneurysm?
According to Angelina, there's a more nefarious possibility.
She was pretty sure that somebody had poisoned my brother.
This was no accident. I can feel it.
At this point, emotions are high, so maybe Angelina is just overreacting, but investigators want to see if there's any validity to her theory.
While Frank's body is transported to the coroner's office for an autopsy, Angelina accompanies officers back to the station for a sit-down with detectives.
Hi, Angelina. Nice to meet you. Are you here like last?
Investigators cut right to the chase.
You believe there's a possibility that your husband was poisoned? Yes, sir.
Angelina informed the police that Frank was extremely healthy, but over the last several days, he became gravely ill. He was throwing up every half hour, extremely sick, vomiting, and diarrhea.
If you want to go to the doctor, he goes, no, I probably just gotta talk. Typical stubborn man.
But 2 days before his death, Frank's symptoms seemed to be getting worse, and Angelina knew she had to act fast.
And he was just paler than anything. And I said, that's it. I'll take him to the doctor.
Doctors ran all the standard tests, but they couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. They said Frank probably just had food poisoning or maybe a stomach flu.
Doctor said you can go home as long as you get rest, get food, take your medicine the way you're supposed to.
Angelina says when Frank returned from the hospital, she continued nursing him back to health, and he seemed to be improving.
Well, I'm gonna get out of your space so you can get some rest, but if you need anything else, just give me a shout.
Sounds good, darling.
I'm thinking the worst is over. And now I can just, relax, and I fell asleep. I fell asleep on the couch. And then I woke up at about 3, and I said, time for me to go to bed. And that's what I thought of.
Frank? Frank!
As for why Angelina now suspects foul play in her husband's death, she says it has everything to do with the timing of when Frank got sick.
She says around the same time Frank got sick, he had taken a short contracted position with his previous workplace, Angel Gate Academy. They were going to bus in some kids from LA near where Frank and Angelina now lived, up to San Luis Obispo, where the school is located, and they wanted Frank to help.
They offered him $220 just to escort the bus of kids as a disciplinary teacher to San Luis and to ride it back.
So you just riding along to chaperone, basically?
Yeah.
But Angelina says she urged Frank against taking another job with their former employer.
When we worked at Angel Gate, we both realized or recognized that there was child abuse.
Angelina explains the culprit was a school instructor named Jack Parker.
I had witnessed a situation where he would look in the latrine, the bathrooms, while the girls were getting dressed. Then he would go into one of the bays, the quarters, and just stand there and watch the girls. You know, I wasn't comfortable with that.
Frank?
Yes, son?
Angelina says when she shared her concerns with Frank back in April, he was horrified.
Wow, are you sure?
Yes, I know what I saw.
And because Frank loved the children that he worked with and he loved his job, he decided to take it a step further and report this to the Child Protective Services, CPS, and an investigation was launched.
According to Angelina, that's when Jack started making threats.
He looked at me and had said, if anybody jeopardizes my job, I will kill them.
Detectives in Montebello, California are speaking with Angelina Rodriguez about the untimely death of her husband, Frank.
Angelina believes Frank's former co-worker, Jack Parker, poisoned Frank as payback for reporting him to CPS.
You mentioned threats. What threats are there?
He looked at me and had said, if anybody jeopardizes my job, I will kill them. He looked at Frank and he went like this, and he went, right, dead on, eye to eye.
According to Angelina, this incident with Jack Parker was the main reason why they left Angel Gate and decided to pursue employment somewhere else.
But Angelina says when Angel Gate Academy reached out to Frank about the contracted position in late August, he felt it was his duty to help.
I had asked Frank not to fail, but Frank was an idealist. He thought everything will be okay.
On September 5th, Frank rode a bus up to San Luis Obispo with a group of middle school kids, escorting them to the academy.
When I get back, I said, so how is everybody there? They were great. They walked up to me, they hugged me, they, said they missed me, and they gave me Gatorade and cookies and a snack. There was no animosity.
However, once he fell ill, she became extremely suspicious.
Maybe back here, did he say who offered him the Gatorade?
Angelina says it was none other than Jack Parker.
Apparently, the CPS investigation failed to find any proof of abuse, so Jack still had his same position at the academy.
She suspected that maybe he had given Frank snacks and drink with maybe some poison in it.
I don't know what else it could be. For him being as healthy as he was to...
Detectives share Angelina's concerns.
They do believe it's suspicious that he fell ill right after visiting Angel Gate.
They're hoping the autopsy report can provide some clarity on whether or not Frank died of natural causes or some sort of poisonous substance like Angelina believed.
While they await the autopsy results, detectives investigate their new lead.
They want to speak to Jack Parker.
We ended up going up north to talk to him along with several other people and just find out where he was, if he had saw Frank, if he had any words with Frank at all.
When investigators sit down with Jack, he readily admits that he had a falling out with Frank a few months ago.
Of course it made me mad. Wouldn't it make you mad? I almost lost my job over that. Those rumors aren't true.
So did you decide to punish the person for putting you in that position?
Punish him? That's crazy.
He agreed that he was upset at this whole entire incident, but even though he was upset, he did not poison Frank.
He further mentioned that on September 5th, he did not see Frank at Angel Gate.
I didn't even know he was here.
It was a last-minute request from Angel Gate Academy, so when Frank got up there, no one knew he was coming. It was a surprise. So how would Jack know Frank was coming to have poison on hand?
When detectives follow up with Jack's co-workers, they confirm his account.
There is no way Jack would poison someone.
If there is anyone you should be looking at, it's Frank's wife.
Angelina?
While talking to detectives, Frank's former co-workers paint a troubling picture of his marriage to Angelina.
They report that although the parties had only been married for a very short period of time, the marriage was on the rocks.
As more details were coming to light, there were some red flags being raised.
Police soon learned that Frank isn't Angelina's first, second, or third husband. This is the fourth time she has been married, all by the age of 32.
I knew something was off the moment that she started working here.
How so?
She was so desperate to get any guy's attention.
People at Angel Gate described her as a chameleon. And prior to her starting a relationship with Frank, she had this infatuation for another employee who was kind of a cowboy.
Many of her colleagues say that Angelina was dressing like a cowgirl day to day, trying to pique this man's interest. She even had bumper stickers on her car to kind of stamp her as a down-home cowgirl.
But when that didn't work out, she started talking to Frank.
Here's Frank, a very religious, very spiritual man, read his Bible religiously. So now she starts reading the Bible. She puts Jesus Christ bumper stickers on her car.
Frank ended up falling for her act.
She convinced him to marry her after like 3 months of dating. It all happened really fast.
Around that same time, Angelina started accusing Jack Parker of sexually abusing students at the school.
Do you think there's any validity to her claims?
Absolutely not. But Frank, he believed everything she said, which is why he reported Jack to CPS.
Former co-workers say Angelina really got in Frank's head and made him believe something about Jack that wasn't true.
Wow, are you sure?
Yes, I know what I saw.
Why do you think she'd make something up like that about Jack?
I have no clue. The woman's crazy.
Detectives agree that Angelina's behavior is rather concerning.
After traveling back to Montebello, the detectives decide to interview Frank's family to see if they share similar concerns about his marriage to Angelina.
Something definitely wasn't right with her.
They started to notice that there was trouble in paradise very early on.
They were fighting a lot and just weren't happy together.
Frank would call me on the phone a lot. But when they got married, the calls got less and less and less. And I remember one call that I got from him, and he was whispering. And in his whisper voice, he'd say, well, she doesn't want me to call the family anymore.
Then a few days before he died, I got a call from Angelina.
Angelina casually informed her that Frank had fallen ill.
She said he was going to the hospital frequently, and the hospital would send him home with no diagnosis except flu symptoms or ulcers or whatever it was.
We didn't think much of it because she didn't really say how serious it had gotten.
You think, okay, well, if he needs me, he'll call. And then the next call I get is in September.
That's when Angelina informed them that Frank had passed.
I remember I fell to the table and I started bawling. I didn't get to say goodbye. I didn't get to say goodbye. We all thought he had a heart attack.
But now, Frank's family suspects foul play.
I think Angelina did this to him.
And as suspicion of Angelina Rodriguez mounts, it seems she's starting to feel the heat.
She starts making these really odd phone calls to the investigators.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Did you guys get anything at all from the coroner?
The autopsy results have yet to come back. However, Angelina is really pushing for some results and is calling the detectives day in and day out.
Well, they don't have anything yet. It takes time for this type of stuff.
When the detectives eventually ask Angelina what is the rush, she tells them something very unexpected.
She needs Frank's death certificate so she can file an insurance claim.
She wanted that money.
After speaking with several of Frank Rodriguez's family members and former co-workers, Montebello detectives are starting to believe his wife, Angelina, had something to do with his untimely death.
Angelina has been calling detectives repeatedly asking about the results of Frank's autopsy.
Did you guys get anything at all from the coroner?
She needs Frank's death certificate so she can file an insurance claim.
She wanted that money.
But she wasn't going to get that money till there was a cause of death on the certificate.
The detectives learned that just 2 months prior, Angelina and Frank took out a $250,000 life insurance policy on Frank's life. This is in addition to 2 other hefty policies that Frank had from his previous employment.
And when detectives call the couple's insurance agent up, he reveals a very shocking piece of information.
He tells police that Angelina tried to file a claim on Frank's insurance policy less than 5 hours after he died.
This is certainly not the behavior of a grieving widow.
When the autopsy report finally comes in, it does little to help Angelina's cause.
The coroner was not able to determine Frank's cause of death.
They didn't find any physical trauma. They didn't find any aneurysm.
In addition, all the standard toxicology tests came back negative.
Is it possible that Frank wasn't poisoned at all and he really did die from natural causes?
While detectives continue their search for answers, Frank's family attends his funeral, where he is laid to rest with full military honors and a 21-gun salute.
At the funeral, Angelina, she did not shed a tear. Her demeanor was just cold. She didn't care that my brother had passed. There was nothing there.
But that's not the only thing that makes Frank's family uncomfortable.
She said something about oleander, and my family's looking at her like, what are you talking about, oleander? Well, that's a poison. Maybe they should test for oleander in his system.
Oleander is not typically included in the standard toxicology report.
There's no reason for Angelina to suspect that plant was used to poison Frank unless she knows more than she's letting on. So the family relayed this unsettling info to police.
And in the following days, Angelina gets even more persistent with her calls to detectives.
She was very adamant about asking us when we were going to arrest Jack. And she said she got a phone call from an anonymous number. It was a male voice telling her that he had something to tell her.
They said they wanted to tell me what was going on because they had a lot of respect for Frank, but they couldn't tell me who they were. And they said, you need to know a conversation I had.
He told her that he had spoken with Jack, and Jack had told him that he was responsible for killing Frank, and that Jack told him that they're never going to be able to prove it. They're never going to be able to pin it on me.
You can't pin me. You can't pin me. It started breaking up, and all I heard was ask them about antifreeze.
Just like oleander, antifreeze wouldn't show up in a usual toxicology report. So investigators immediately order another round of tests to look for the poisons in Frank's body.
As detectives await the results, they examine Angelina's phone records, checking to see if she was being truthful about the anonymous call she received.
Angelina tells the police that she received that anonymous call at about 8 a.m. on October 19th.
But we looked into her phone records, and she did not receive any phone calls even near the time that she said she received a phone call.
And when the results from the new toxicology tests come in, it's just what detectives suspected.
He died from a combination of oleander and antifreeze.
Frank's cause of death was poisoning.
Now more than ever, Investigators are confident Angelina Rodriguez killed her husband.
She's been the one indirectly leading investigators to these items, and detectives feel like they want to go in for a confession.
So they reached out to Jack Parker, the person Angelina originally accused of killing Frank.
We asked him if he would call Angelina and question her about why she's pointing the finger at him, and we could be listening to it and recording it on the other end.
They're hoping she'll slip and confess to the crime.
Jack agrees, and on December 13th, detectives move forward with their plan.
Hello?
Angelina?
Yes?
Why did you tell the police that I poisoned Frank with antifreeze?
She was shocked when he called.
On December 13th, 2000, detectives in Montebello, California are trying to catch murder suspect Angelina Rodriguez in a lie.
They believe she poisoned her husband and tried to frame his former coworker, Jack Parker, for the crime.
We asked Jack if he would call Angelina and question her about why she's pointing the finger at him, and we could be listening to it and recording it on the other end.
Hello?
Angelina?
Yes?
Why did you tell the police that I poisoned Frank with antifreeze?
She was shocked when he called.
But she didn't take the bait.
Who is this?
My main question, Angelina, is how
How did you get my number?
I wanted Angelina. I'm just wondering how in the world this could ruin my life.
You know what? You need to call the investigator. I'm ending this conversation.
Okay, Angelina.
Angelina hung up that phone call and didn't provide Jack with any additional information once she was confronted.
Detectives are disappointed they didn't get the confession they need, but when Angelina's best friend, Lisa Wilson, comes forward, the investigation starts looking up again.
I have some information that I think will be useful to you.
Lisa and Angelina, their relationship was quite close. Like many friends, they tell all.
Sometimes we would complain to each other about our marriages, and Angelina didn't hold back when it came to her feelings about Frank.
Lisa tells the investigators that just a few months after their marriage, Angelina was already tired of Frank, and she began cheating on him.
There were various other men. And I asked her, why don't you just, get a divorce? And then she would go on and on about some life insurance policy.
If she divorced Frank, she'd get nothing. But if something happened to Frank, she'd get a hefty payout.
Angelina had been talking about poisons and stuff, and Angelina was very interested in antifreeze.
If that wasn't unsettling enough, a phone call Lisa had with Angelina a few days later sent shivers down her spine.
She asked Angelina what she was doing because she heard a noise, and Angelina told Lisa that she was making Frank a special milkshake because he liked milkshakes when he wasn't feeling well.
Oh, is Frank sick?
And Angelina responded, not yet.
What is that supposed to mean?
Don't worry about it. I'll talk to you later.
I think she was poisoning him that very second.
Detectives wholeheartedly agree. There's no doubt in their minds Angelina poisoned Frank to death.
So on February 7th, 2001, nearly 5 months after Frank was killed, they head to Angelina's home with an arrest warrant.
The detectives decide that they were going to try one more time to elicit a confession out of Angelina.
Good morning. Morning. How's it going today?
They play it cool at first, so she'll think it's just a routine follow-up interview.
However, once investigators sit down with Angelina inside the home, they start to reveal why they're really there.
We got a little problem.
What? They told her that it was impossible for Jack to have poisoned Frank.
Unless he was visiting you guys on Friday, he couldn't have done this. The stuff that Frank had in his stomach, he had to ingest within a couple hours of his death. They found it in his stomach the liquid, the antifreeze, and it has to, liquids purge every couple hours.
Angelina, did you give Frank antifreeze?
No, I didn't. I love my husband. I would not do that.
Even when confronted point blank, Angelina denies any involvement in her husband's murder.
Let's think about this a second. You're the only person with him. You're taking care of him. You're feeding and giving him liquids to drink. We have an abundant amount of information that points that you poisoned Frank.
I didn't poison my husband. I mean, I am willing to take a lie detector test. I did not poison my husband.
Angelina does not budge.
I did not kill my husband.
I'm gonna tell you, we don't believe you. Okay. You stand up.
Are you arresting me?
Yes, you are under arrest for the murder of Frank.
No! I didn't kill my husband!
Angelina breaks down into tears when she realizes that she is being arrested.
Oh, God, please. I didn't kill my husband, I swear.
But by now, detectives see through her act and don't buy a word she's saying.
She's charged with first-degree murder. Investigators believe this crime was planned out and premeditated.
With Angelina finally behind bars and her trial date rapidly approaching, investigators think this case is just about over.
But soon, detectives realize that Angelina has no intentions of going down quietly.
Yes, the detective signed one.
Angelina was trying to kill one of the witnesses in her case, and that witness ultimately was Lisa.
Building a strong circumstantial case against Angelina Rodriguez, Montebello authorities have finally arrested her for the poisoning death of her husband, Frank Rodriguez.
You are under arrest for the murder of Frank.
No! I didn't kill my husband!
With Angelina behind bars, investigators feel confident they are finally about to close this case once and for all.
But while awaiting trial in a Los Angeles County jail, Angelina has made one last desperate attempt to secure her freedom.
She is trying to have the star witness, her once close friend Lisa, murdered.
I received a phone call from a jail employee that said that they were contacted by an informant who told them that Angelina was trying to get her to kill Lisa. She agreed to record conversations she was having with Angelina about how and when to kill Lisa.
Do you think that if they made it look like a suicide, they'd be bright enough to figure a way to do that? They can do it robbery gone bad, or they can make it look like a boyfriend gone mad. If they get cyanide, then, you know, that would do it real quick, you know what I'm saying?
Angelina had scenarios all the way from blowing up the house to maybe even poison her. So with that information, we devised a plan.
They essentially decide to fake Lisa's death.
Police informed Lisa of the plot by Angelina to take her life, and Lisa agrees to help the police.
We picked up some fake blood and a fake bullet hole that we could put on Lisa's head, and we basically took Polaroid photographs of Lisa on her bed in her bedroom, which Angelina would recognize.
Then an undercover officer posing as the hitman heads to the Los Angeles jail where Angelina is being held.
Hey, listen, something's happened to your friend. Okay?
Oh, what?
Right.
Within a few seconds, she's like, oh my God, I'm going home.
I am so ready to go home. I'm like, you know what? I'm going home.
And then by the end of the visit, typical Angelina, being very promiscuous, was asking the deputy about basically getting together and hooking up after she got out of jail.
You know, I gotta tell you, I feel really embarrassed. Why? Because, you know, what a way to start a conversation. What a blind, okay. I guess you call it a blind date, huh?
However, little does Angelina know she won't be going on another date anytime soon.
If you learn anything from Angelina's case, it's that a big mouth gets you in big trouble.
And when her trial finally begins in October of 2003, prosecutors contend that just as Angelina attempted to take the life of her friend, she took the life of her husband through premeditated murder.
Based in large part on the testimony by Lisa Wilson, the prosecution alleged that Angelina was fed up with her marriage to Frank shortly after they got married and was looking for a way out of the relationship.
She was essentially bored of him and ready to move on to the next guy, but not without getting his money first.
Instead of filing for divorce like she had with previous husbands, Angelina devised a more sinister plot.
Because there was a large life insurance policy in place, this gave her the reason to want to kill Frank.
Prosecutors allege that in September of 2000, Angelina began poisoning Frank with oleander that she harvested herself.
The neighbors behind her had an oleander tree in their backyard that was growing over their fence, which she plucked from.
She used it in liquid form to put in Frank's food and drink.
But the oleander wasn't working fast enough.
The oleander made Frank ill enough to put him in the ER, but it did not kill him, and his demise did not come fast enough for Angelina.
Whatever the doctor gave me is working. I'm starting to feel a lot better.
Well, isn't that wonderful?
She stepped it up to a more potent poison and gave him antifreeze.
I made you a special treat.
According to the coroner's report, Angelina administered the final dose of antifreeze just hours before Frank's passing.
We were totally shocked that she would go to such lengths as antifreeze and oleander because it's such a slow death.
Had she not raised so much concern about it and let things take its course, there's a possibility that it might not have been detected.
She potentially could have gotten away with this murder.
But she wanted money. She was very greedy. It helped us solve the murder against Frank.
At the end of their deliberations, the jury announces their verdict.
The jury finds Angelina guilty of first-degree murder for financial gain.
But the story still isn't over yet.
At Angelina's sentencing hearing, prosecutors reveal a shocking new piece of information.
They uncovered evidence to suggest that Angelina murdered her 13-month-old daughter back in 1993.
Her daughter had died as a result of a pacifier nipple being lodged in her throat.
At the time, there was a recall on that brand of pacifiers, so Angelina sued the manufacturer.
She walked away with over $700,000 and an additional life insurance policy of $50,000 that she took out on the baby.
But now prosecutors have reason to believe it was Angelina's plan all along.
We had gotten pictures of the pacifier from the coroner's office. The recall said it could come unglued from the backing plate. But if you looked at these pictures, you could tell that there were jagged tears, but it was still glued. This pacifier didn't fail. It was basically, nipple was ripped off of it.
Prosecutors were hoping that this information would help the jury understand why Angelina needed to be sentenced to the harshest punishment possible.
The prosecution's strategy works.
The jury sentenced Angelina to death.
At the end, the judge said, "I have never witnessed such a stone-cold person in the way your behavior was with no emotion, and what you did to this person, it's disgusting."
Due to the statute of limitations, Angelina is never formally charged in the death of her 13-month-old daughter, but she'll have to spend the rest of her life paying for what she did to Frank Rodriguez.
As of today, Angelina is still on death row.
However, after a moratorium on the death penalty in California in 2019, there are no current plans to execute Angelina.
Angelina is a psychopath.
She was a manipulator. She knew exactly how to manipulate my brother, Frank.
Angelina was willing to do whatever she needed to do to get her money, and I believe wholeheartedly in my mind that if she got away with Frank's murder, she's one of those people that wouldn't stop. She'd do it again and again and again until she was caught.
The way she murdered him, it was sickening. She had no intentions of ever loving my brother. And that's sad because my brother loved her. He was just one of those loving, caring people.
When you're young and free, it feels like the world is your oyster. And nothing is off limits. But some desires in life shouldn't be gratified and aren't worth the risk, especially if they come with a warning label. If you begin flirting with danger, it might just flirt back, wrapping you in its grasp with no way out. January 6, 2016. It's a chilly winter day in the bustling city of Little Rock, Arkansas.
We have good shopping, good restaurants. It's a really good place. Everybody knows somebody around here. It's a smaller, big town vibe.
But just before 2 p.m., a flurry of 911 calls come into the Little Rock Police Department.
We had a bank robbery in progress with shots fired.
Our manager's been shot. He is laying on the floor behind the desk.
Yes, right. Some of your manager's been shot. Yes.
Within minutes, police arrive on the scene.
There was a chance the shooter could have still been somewhere on the premises, so police had to use extreme caution.
Officers enter the bank with guns drawn.
Anytime we have a situation where shots have been fired and we're not sure if the suspects have cleared a building, we handle it as though the suspect is still in there and still armed.
Once inside, police see the bank manager lying on the floor, surrounded by blood.
He appeared to be conscious, but still in a great deal of pain.
The bank personnel were all very shooken up.
People are so concerned because they have no idea if he's going to make it. I really, in my mind, thought we were going to lose him, and that was terrifying.
Officers rush to assess the manager's wounds, while others fan out to speak to witnesses. And when they do, they'll discover the shooter wasn't alone. He had an accomplice. "18-year-old beauty Jaisha Howard had a bright future ahead of her.
She wants to be a lawyer. The way she discussed being a lawyer, I can see that spark in her eye, and it made me so happy.
She felt that she became an attorney, that she can help those without a voice to be their voice.
She was very caring. It doesn't matter if it was the shirt on her back, she would have gave it to you.
Jaisha was not only known for her compassionate nature, but her ability to see the bright side in things.
She is literally the most fun person. She can make you laugh instantly no matter how bad your day is going.
So when she met local troublemaker Tyrone Randolph, she easily saw past his faults.
She met Tyrone through some friends when they were all hanging out at a basketball court together one day.
It was kind of like that love at first sight.
I think the attraction was he was everything different from her. He was a little bit more rebellious, more adventurous. He really didn't have any ambitions to be in school. He was just trying to make a way through the streets.
Tyrone was 2 years younger than Jaisha, but his age and reputation didn't stop her from expressing her interest in him.
Tyrone was very charming and very mature for his age.
She just say how she used to get butterflies from him. This was the first time she encountered someone that she get the adrenaline just from them being dangerous.
He was somebody that she knew her parents wouldn't approve of, and that was probably exciting for her.
That attraction was so strong that she pretty much, as a result, did anything she thought she could do to be appreciated by him.
Before long, Jaysha and Tyrone became a couple, and there was no denying the chemistry between the two.
These two were madly in love. They were obsessed with each other.
She probably felt like she had won the lottery. I got him.
She was like, oh my God, Tyrone, there's something about him. I love him so much, and I don't know this feeling that I'm having, and this is the guy I want to marry. This is the guy I want to have a baby with.
Jaysha's new man became the center of her entire world, and there wasn't much room for anyone else.
When she wasn't in school, every free second she had was with Tyrone, so that meant her friends and family had to take a back seat.
When she got with Tyrone, she cut off from her family, her friends that have known her forever.
I definitely had this deep down feeling that she didn't need to even go down the road with Tyrone.
We all just tried to handle it and say, hey, you need to leave him alone. But Jaysha rebelled worse.
She was so consumed with Tyrone that she dedicated everything to him.
She had a date set when they were supposed to get engaged. She had like a whole life planned for them.
Little did Jaysha know, the perfect future she was planning with her man would come at a lofty cost.
She was willing to do whatever it took to be there for him because she felt like she was in love and this was who she wanted.
She's putting her freedom on the line and possibly her life.
January 6, 2016, Little Rock, Arkansas. Police are investigating a robbery turned shooting at a local bank.
Mr. Lewis, who's the bank manager, had been shot.
They find 43-year-old Sam Lewis on the ground with blood rushing out of his shoulder and his hand.
It's a clear, clean through shot on him. Goes through his shoulder, clips his finger, pretty much severs his finger.
Fortunately, Sam appears to be in stable condition.
I knew that I was severely injured, and I was just determined not to die there on that bank floor.
As they wait for EMTs to arrive, Sam and his co-workers tell police what happened.
The suspect entered the bank, approached the two tellers that were working at the counter.
He was wearing a clown mask.
He came in the door waving a huge sawed-off shotgun, and my tellers were absolutely frightened.
He demands the money. She's able to get almost $3,000 for him.
He received the money, and he's going towards the door, and I'm thinking, oh God, it's almost over. He's gonna take this money and bolt out the door. But that's not what happened.
He's walking out, and then he stops abruptly and looking to his left, which is where Mr. Lewis was sitting.
We essentially locked eyes, and that's when something just told me he's about to shoot. And the next thing you know, the weapon fired. It seemed like everything went in slow motion. And I remember going from the chair to the floor. My shoulder was numb. I could see blood, and I looked at my hand and I could see bone and tissue. My finger was nearly severed.
No one is sure what prompted the shot, but police know they need to track down the gunman before he hurts anyone else.
Detectives are concerned they don't know if he'll do this again.
Before they can look far, police catch a lucky break.
Someone could actually see the gunman running away from the bank and could identify not only the getaway car, but also his accomplice.
In the spring of 2015, Jaysha Howard thought she'd found the man of her dreams in Tyrone Randolph.
Tyrone was her first love. He was very mature for his age. She was like, I've never had a man just shower me with so much love.
Tyrone had a bit of a reputation around town.
He stole drugs, he did a lot of things.
Tyrone, unfortunately, was living the street life.
Jaysha, however, chose to look past Tyrone's shortcomings.
Jaisha thought she could change Tyrone. She may have very much thought that she could be the thing he needed.
Her heart was way bigger than her thinking at that point. My niece had naive eyes and a very strong heart. I would say she was easy prey to be used.
Soon, Jaisha would take her love for Tyrone to another level of devotion. One that would eventually cost her everything.
She loved this young man so much that she risked her entire freedom.
January 6, 2016. Little Rock police have just arrived at a local bank in response to a violent robbery turned shooting.
Sam Lewis, the bank manager, had been shot in his hand and his shoulder.
He seemed to be in a lot of pain, but he was stable, so police took a statement from him and other witnesses while they waited for medics to arrive.
According to Sam and his co-workers, the assailant had shot Sam point blank before fleeing the building.
It was senseless. He already had what he needed. He could have just walked out and it would have been over.
He had the money, and all he had to do was leave the bank. There was no reason to fire the weapon. There was no reason to harm anyone.
Shortly after Sam is transported to the hospital, detectives arrive on the scene.
We were thinking this was going to be a hard crime to solve. The suspect didn't really touch anything in the bank. He touched the doors, but he had gloves on. Chances of finding his DNA, even if he wasn't gloved, would be pretty slim.
He's on the loose. They don't know if he's going to go target another bank or another business. Detectives want to catch this suspect as soon as they can.
Fortunately, one of the bank's employees may be able to help.
She was outside during the shooting, and she actually saw the shooter run away from the bank.
The witness says she had been leaving work for the day when it happened.
She got out to her car. As she was putting her belongings in the back seat, she heard a loud bang. She thought that someone was actually shooting at the bank. She still didn't know that there was a robbery in progress and her bank manager had just gotten shot. She looks up and that's when she sees chaos.
From the safety of her car, the witness saw the man in the mask flee the bank.
The bank robber runs outside of the bank. He gets into a maroon vehicle.
The witness then saw the shooter take off his mask.
She saw him without the mask. It was a young black male.
The young man had an accomplice.
She was able to view a biracial female driving the car.
The witness also gotten a good look at the vehicle's license plate information.
She provided a description of the license plate that was on the car.
When detectives run the plate, they immediately get a hit.
It's connected to a young man named Tyrone Randolph.
This is a huge break in the case.
Detectives make their way to the address on file for the vehicle, hoping they'll be able to catch their modern-day Bonnie and Clyde.
Police stake out the house where the car is registered.
The suspect vehicle was sitting in the driveway in front of the residence.
Within minutes, detectives see movement. A young couple exits the front door of the house.
It was a male fitting the suspect description and a female that appeared to be biracial.
Once the two suspects get inside their vehicle, police spring into action.
The units pull in behind the vehicle, turn on their emergency equipment.
This is a really tense situation. Police don't know if these suspects have a gun. They're considered armed and dangerous.
January 6, 2016. Little Rock police have just located suspected bank robber Tyrone Randolph and his female accomplice.
Tyrone went into the bank to rob it, but then ended up shooting the manager, Sam Lewis. And they believe the woman was his getaway driver.
Now, Police have the two suspects in their crosshairs.
The car is surrounded. I'm sure the teenagers are feeling frightened, scared, anxious.
They order the driver to toss the keys from the vehicle, then open the door from the outside.
Police officers command them to put their hands up, to get out of the car, to turn around, and to back up slowly.
The young couple does as instructed.
The female identified herself as Jaisha Howard, Tyrone's girlfriend. She just kept saying, what's this about? Why are you doing this? We ain't done nothing. She was playing dumb.
She was not going down without a fight. She didn't want to admit to anything.
Tyrone, however, appears to see the writing on the wall.
He had his head down, and he said, I know what this is about. We placed them separately in two different patrol units so that they could not talk to each other.
As the patrol units prepare to pull away with Tyrone and Jaisha in tow, Tyrone's mother emerges from the home.
Detectives explain to Tyrone's mom that Tyrone and Jaisha are suspected in a bank robbery that's happened earlier today where someone has been shot.
She was pretty unhappy at that point with Tyrone, it appeared. She was concerned about the well-being of the person that was shot.
The detectives ask about Tyrone's relationship with Jaisha.
She basically stated that Jaisha is older than him and that was his girlfriend, and that she stays with them sometimes there at the house.
She knows that her son is a little rough around the edges, but Jaisha was a sweet girl, a good girl. Tyrone's mom said the two were smitten. They loved each other.
Tyrone's mother says the couple left the house earlier that afternoon, but seemed fine when they returned.
Nothing was out of the ordinary. The two didn't seem like they just robbed a bank.
Detectives ask Tyrone's mother if they can search her home.
I explained to her that we believed that he had possibly brought the gun back to the residence. She was adamant she did not want that gun or anything like that in her house.
Tyrone's mother shows them to a back bedroom.
I had her stand there and watch while I searched the room. And at that point, I started recovering evidence.
It was a gold mine in there. They found everything they were looking for.
The sawed-off shotgun was stuck down between the wall and the bed, and it had been unloaded. There was a spent shell casing, which would be the round that was fired in the bank.
Not only do they find the gun, but they find the mask.
Then, in a purse, they find money. A lot of it.
They assumed it must have been Jaisha's purse.
They find the nearly $3,000 that had been stolen from the bank.
Also, I found a saw, which to me would indicate that's what they used to saw the barrel of the gun off with.
With the evidence piling up, detectives hope the two suspects ultimately confess.
It helps to have good, solid evidence prior to questioning. A lot of times they'll realize quick that the game's over.
Back at the station, detectives start with their suspected shooter, Tyrone Randolph.
You actually indicated that you wanted to talk about what happened and try to help yourself. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. He was very, almost methodical in the way he spoke. He had a deep voice for a young man. He really showed no emotion.
Tyrone agrees to tell all in hopes of a lesser sentence.
He is singing like a bird. He's telling them everything from beginning to end.
According to Tyrone, he and Jaisha needed money ASAP because Jaisha was pregnant.
He said they weren't ready for this and they didn't have the money to support a child.
It kind of got to me. I don't have a job, I'm only 16, not in school.
Based on that, he had gotten this plan to do something to get money, which was to rob a bank.
Tyrone says he knew he needed a gun to pull it off, so he enlisted Jaisha's help.
Because he wasn't old enough, he got Jaisha to buy him the gun.
Tyrone tells detectives that once Jaisha bought him the gun, he manipulated it.
He tells police that she was in the room when he sawed the shotgun off.
After that, Tyrone says Jaysha drove him to the bank.
When she parked, I said, look, I'm finna go make some money.
Tyrone told Jaysha he would be back in that spot in 5 minutes.
He put his mask on and gets the gun. He heads to the bank.
Tyrone admits that inside the bank, he was terrified.
The whole time I'm thinking, Lord, please help me get through this. Just hurry up and get it done with. I was trying to get the money and go. That's all I was in for.
Tyrone claims it was shaky nerves and sweaty hands that led to the shooting.
He said he tried to readjust his hands because he felt like the gun was slipping and it went off.
Tyrone says shooting the branch manager was a complete accident.
I didn't mean to shoot him, but the gun went off. I did not mean it, sir.
Detectives are skeptical of Tyrone's claim that the shot he fired was an accident.
I don't believe it was an accident. He claims that his hands were sweaty, but he had gloves on.
Not to mention, Tyrone's statement directly conflicts with the victim's account.
The bank manager said he meant to shoot.
He had the money, so the only other thing to do was fire the weapon.
Detectives hope that by speaking to Tyrone's girlfriend, Jaysha, they can get to the bottom of things.
Jaysha had a choice. She could either lie about everything that happened and protect herself, or she can tell the truth.
But when detectives sit down with Jaysha, they'll learn that she had a history of riding for Tyrone.
This isn't the first time she's actually committed a crime for her man. She just couldn't say no, and she would do whatever he wanted her to do.
He gave her an adrenaline rush that she'd never had before.
January 6, 2016. Authorities in Little Rock, Arkansas, have teenage couple Tyrone Randolph and Jaysha Howard in custody for a violent armed robbery that took place just hours earlier.
They made out with about $3,000, and a man was shot in the process.
Tyrone has confessed to detectives, but they aren't so sure he's telling them the whole story.
He says Jaysha was pregnant. They were going to rob the bank and get enough money for their new baby.
He told police he never meant to shoot someone. It was an accident.
Detectives are eager to see if Jaysha's version of events matches her boyfriend's.
Just from her demeanor during that arrest, detectives think this is going to be an uphill battle to even try to get the truth out of her.
She kept trying to act like she didn't know what was going on. Pretty sure she knew exactly what was going on.
Detective Martin has his partner take the lead with Jaysha.
I felt like with Jaysha's demeanor that she would be more receptive to speaking to a female detective.
You're in a relationship with Tyrone Randolph, is that correct?
Correct.
He's been your boyfriend for how long?
A year.
She came off as a kind of a shy, laid-back girl. She's kind of soft-spoken.
Detectives confront Jaysha with the evidence they found at Tyrone's house, the eyewitness statement, and most damning of all, Tyrone's confession.
She's in disbelief. He's kind of thrown Jaysha under the bus. Tyrone has given them all of the information they needed to link her to the robbery.
Tyrone has told the police that Jaysha is the getaway driver and that she was the purchaser of the gun.
She really, really loved him deeply. And when she found out that he betrayed her, she felt anger, deep resentment, a whole lot of embarrassment.
After learning that Tyrone has sold her out, Jaysha's demeanor changes. She stops protecting him and starts to open up.
She says Tyrone had a habit of taking things that were not his.
Jaysha admits that recently, Tyrone started enlisting her help in his illegal shopping sprees.
She once stole some khaki pants to give to Tyrone.
Why did you steal those pants?
Because he wanted them. He asked me to.
Jaysha wanted to show her loyalty to him, to show him that I'm here for you.
According to Jaysha, Tyrone's demands escalated just a few weeks later. The same week, she became pregnant.
Detectives asked Jaisha if she's ever taken a test and if she could confirm that she's pregnant.
To their surprise, Jaisha says no.
They thought that he had gotten her pregnant because she had recently had unprotected sex with him.
Jaisha said Tyrone was so certain she was pregnant that she didn't even feel she needed to take a test.
Just something in her mind saying, I'm pregnant. She was excited at the same time because it was like, I'm having a baby by a man I love so much.
She was very happy because she's always wanted a baby.
It's pretty crazy to assume you're pregnant without taking a test, but Tyrone was certain, he was convinced, and she trusted him.
You can be a little bit more naive when you love people, when you get those emotions involved.
Jaisha says she and Tyrone were concerned about how they were going to pay for a pregnancy and support a new baby. But Tyrone had a plan.
He said, we'll go rob this and we'll have money for our child and we'll get out of here and we'll start our new life.
Jaisha was very nervous, but she wasn't going to voice her full opinion because she loves Tyrone and she didn't want to lose him. She allowed him to lead her down this path.
She wasn't going to let him go do it by himself because she didn't want him to get hurt, so she was going to be there.
Considering he's my boyfriend, I didn't want nothing bad to happen to him.
The two went over all the little details. They talked about when they were going to do it, the mask. They talked about how it was going to be done, where they were going to go. They picked that bank because over in West Little Rock off of Highway 10, it wasn't a very busy time of day. It was a quiet neighborhood. This type of thing doesn't typically happen, so people would be unassuming.
She had to show Tyrone again that I'm going to continue to be loyal to you. I'm going to continue to support you. I'm going to continue to ride for you.
Jaisha confirms that Tyrone instructed her to buy the gun and that she watched him saw it off.
Some women feel that they do whatever their men ask them to do, that they're actually winning, when a lot of times they're actually losing.
Jaisha says after they were finished manipulating the gun, it was time to put their plan into action.
When he said, are you gonna ride? He said, you're not gonna get in no trouble, baby.
In that moment, Jaisha made a choice that would change her life forever.
Can't just leave him. I couldn't.
She's risking her freedom. She's risking everything that she has worked for.
Jaisha says the shooting was never part of the plan. But when Tyrone came back, she knew what she needed to do.
I think Jaisha knew that this is it, that there's no turning back.
For her to do what she did, there was a heck of a lot of deep love.
January 6, 2016. Little Rock detectives are interrogating 18-year-old Jaisha Howard about her connection to a violent armed bank robbery turned shooting.
Her boyfriend Tyrone admitted to his role as the shooter and her role as the getaway driver.
Jaisha concedes that she agreed to help Tyrone with the robbery after the couple came to an alarming conclusion just a few days after having unprotected sex.
They thought she was pregnant. He wanted to get money, and they had talked about getting money and the plan to do so, which would be to rob the bank.
Tyrone assured her no one's going to get hurt, so she tells police that she went with it.
According to Jaisha, she agreed to drive Tyrone to the bank and wait for him outside. But once they arrived, she began to have second thoughts.
She doesn't know what's going to happen. She's trying to stay calm. He told her, you don't have anything to worry about. No one's going to know it's him. She's not going to be connected to it.
Jaisha says it wasn't so much the thought of getting in trouble that gave her pause. It was her man's safety.
There was definitely a lot of emotions going on. Jaisha was trying to be this ride or die chick. Whatever my man wants, I'm doing, no matter what. I don't care if it causes me to get in trouble, I'm doing it. But she didn't know if he would get hurt. She didn't know what would happen.
I'm praying that he was gonna be okay. That's my main thing. I don't want to see him get shot.
Regardless of her reservations, Jaisha admits that she wasn't going to let her man down.
She wanted to present herself as the type of woman who supports a man who doesn't question him, that whatever he needs, she can give it to him.
The only thing I told him, be careful.
Did he cover his face with anything that you saw?
Yeah.
What?
Mask.
Jaisha says that Tyrone ran into the bank, and minutes later, she heard a shot.
She felt terrified when she heard this shot. She didn't know if her man could have been shot.
She's extremely frantic and ready to leave the scene.
When Tyrone ran out just seconds after, Jaisha says she was relieved that he was okay. But she was also terrified that he may have hurt someone.
When he got in the car, I said, "Did you shoot somebody?" He said, "I'll tell you later." When I asked him again, he said, "Yes, baby."
He said it was an accident, and he's yelling at her, "Just drive off, drive."
Jaisha says at that point, she sped off and could only pray the man he had shot would survive.
She was scared. Her man could have killed somebody.
It was wrong. It was never intended.
Jaisha says when they got back to Tyrone's house, he directed her to help him hide the evidence, namely, the $3,000 stolen from the bank.
He told her she needed to keep that money in her purse.
She knew it was wrong, but she went along with it because she loved Tyrone that much.
Her mindset was, I'm the perfect girlfriend, I'll be the perfect wife. Whatever the man tells me to do, I'm gonna do it.
With that, detectives end the interview, and Jaisha is escorted to her jail cell.
She felt defeated because she had goals of being a mother, raising a family, and just starting a whole new life. But now she may never be able to accomplish that goal.
Jaisha probably started seeing her future fading away, thinking about how instead of being a lawyer, she might be sitting in a jail cell.
The next morning, detectives get their hands on the surveillance footage from the bank. Even though Tyrone claimed the shooting was an accident, they suspected the footage might prove otherwise.
He said it was an accident that the gun went off, but it was just a look in his eye. Then you just see like these eyes in the mask. They were determined. He stopped and pointed the weapon and fired.
The witness accounts are confirmed by the surveillance footage.
The video was impeccable. You could see very clear what happened.
When you see something like that on tape, that he had every opportunity to walk out of the building with the money and accomplish his goal, but he was determined that he was going to fire a shot before he left that building. He intentionally rocked back and pulled the trigger.
The video clearly shows this was no accident.
Soon, detectives will receive yet another alarming piece of information. One that suggests the crime was even more senseless than they had originally imagined.
Tyrone knew exactly what he was doing when he convinced her that she was pregnant. This was all a part of his master plan.
Could have been her way out of Arkansas and her chance to start a new life. So she believed everything he said.
I just wish the love that she had for him that was so tremendously strong. I wish she had loved herself 10 times harder and got out of that car and said, hey, I'm just not gonna do this. This is what I'm not going to do. I just think she got taken by the storm. I mean, completely blindsided. She really loved him. I do know that about my niece. And I guess she felt as if she had to prove herself to him.
January 7th, 2016, Little Rock, Arkansas. 18-year-old Jaisha Howard and her boyfriend, Tyrone Randolph, are in custody for their involvement in a violent bank robbery turned shooting.
The shooting victim and bank manager Sam Lewis survived, but the witness testimony and video shows that this shooting was intentional.
His eyes looked determined. He was on a mission.
He had the money. All he had to do was turn and leave. So for him to discharge that rifle that day, it was unnecessary.
Soon, detectives receive even more alarming information.
They ordered a pregnancy test for Jaisha to take while she was in jail, and they got word it came back. It was negative. She wasn't pregnant.
I feel bad that she found out she wasn't. Because it's like all this could have probably been avoided.
Detectives surmise Tyrone may have tried to make Jaisha think she was pregnant as part of his overall plan.
He may have been planning this robbery all along, and he convinced Jaisha that she was pregnant so that she would actually help him.
Jaisha Howard and Tyrone Randolph are charged with attempted capital murder, aggravated robbery, battery, and theft of property. On top of that, Jaisha is charged with furnishing a deadly weapon to a minor.
Due to the violent nature of this crime, the prosecuting attorney's office authorized me to charge Tyrone as an adult with attempted capital murder.
Jaisha's friends and family are shocked that their loved one has gotten wrapped up in such a violent crime.
There was nothing that could have prepared me for that day to tell me my niece had went to rob a bank.
I remember crying and just crying all day long because every time I turned around, somebody was posting it on Facebook or how Jaisha did this, how Jaisha did that.
I saw on the news, the Bonnie and Clyde of Arkansas, and I'm just like, wait, this is Jaisha.
October 2016. In a pre-trial hearing, Tyrone and his attorneys try to put everything on Jaisha.
It was like that back and forth little law game that people play. Well, she's of legal age and she gave the money, so this must have been her idea.
Tyrone's attorneys suggest that Jaisha was the true mastermind behind the crime, and Tyrone was simply manipulated into doing her bidding.
Tyrone's defense attorneys were basically saying that he was a kid, but he was in this trap with an older woman.
They tried to make it seem like she's the one that manipulated him, that made him think that he needed to do this for her.
Tyrone's legal team also bolsters his original claim that the shooting was a complete accident.
Tyrone explains his hand slipped and he accidentally shot the gun and shot Mr. Lewis.
However, the evidence and witness statements are more than enough for the judge to refute Tyrone's stance.
The judge was not buying Tyrone's story. It was clear he was the mastermind and shot Sam Lewis on purpose. So Tyrone had an option of going to trial and letting a jury decide his fate, or pleading guilty and taking a 30-year sentence.
Ultimately, Tyrone decides to take the plea.
They asked, did you already say anything? He didn't say anything. No remorse, nothing.
This was a very violent crime. His lack of remorse was eerie.
In the wake of Tyrone's sentencing, Jaisha also decides to plead guilty. Before hearing her sentence, Jaisha apologizes to the court and to the victim, bank manager Sam Lewis.
She turned around and told the man, like, I'm sorry that I made these choices that harmed you and your family. I own full responsibility for my actions. I respected her for that.
I'm raised to forgive, but it's so hard when my life is not the same. So at the moment, I haven't arrived at the forgiveness stage yet.
Though her remorse is appreciated, the judge still throws the book at Jaisha.
Jaisha ends up being sentenced to 21 years in prison.
When those 21, she can get out in maybe 9 with good behavior and the rest on parole.
I felt like somebody punched me in the stomach because I know even after my niece gets out, it's not going to be easy for her. It's not.
It's a tough lesson to learn. You seek love, and then it ends up being your undoing.
Jaisha had a really good future, and she just let love get in the way of that. That became her downfall. Love.
I think she's looking back at herself now like there were so many red flags. There was so much I could have done to avoid all of this.
That whole ride or die for my man thing, I think that's what the kids think is cool, to keep him happy, you know, do whatever he says, but that's just not, it's not cool.
When you're young, it can be tempting to flirt with danger. It feels harmless, and the rush is exciting. But if you're not careful, danger can grab hold, and the grip is tight. Before you know it, you're being pulled down deeper and deeper until you're When you fall in love with a man who makes you feel protected and safe, the rush can feel intense, and the relationship may move quickly. He'll do anything to establish that you're his. But what if your man's desire to protect you snowballs out of control? If it all started because he stood by you, do you owe it to your man to stand by him, no matter the consequence? March 21st, 2015, New Orleans, Louisiana. It's early morning in the French Quarter, and another long night of partying is beginning to wind down.
You can lose yourself in Bourbon Street. You get your drinks and you can just spend the whole night there.
It's a cultural hub for any person that wants to come and really get a taste of what New Orleans nightlife is really like.
Even though we're a party town, it's a lot of fun, always a good time, there's also a dark side to New Orleans.
At 4:30 a.m., Jordan and Shayna Andrews are heading back to their car to return home for the night, when the jovial scene turns to chaos.
There were multiple gunshots.
People are running, they're trying to get to safety.
When Jordan and Shayna turn the corner, they make a horrifying discovery.
The two victims were in grave pain and suffering from their injuries.
As other bystanders gather, 911 calls begin pouring into the local police station.
New Orleans Police Department, Operator 160, what is the emergency?
Yes, ma'am. I have a shooting right up a Bourbon.
How many people shot?
We got 2 people down, ma'am. 2 people down.
You know where they shot at on the body?
I mean, all over.
One is shot in the back, and the other one, he has a wound to his arm and his leg.
They're hanging on, and they need first responders to get here immediately.
Police race to the French Quarter. With an active shooter on the loose, they know time is of the essence.
There is a dangerous and armed person, someone that may be a harm to the community.
The shooter could still be in the area. As far as the police were concerned, everyone on Bourbon Street could still be in danger.
What police don't yet know is that there's an unlikely suspect at the center of this crime. One that will risk everything to keep the truth under wraps.
She was willing to tarnish and assassinate her own character in order to stay loyal to him.
"23-year-old single mother of 2, Aja Doucette, had the kind of job that got everyone's attention.
She worked at a bar on Bourbon Street. There's fast money in the area. She had the right looks, the right personality to be that type of bartender.
Aja was someone who was known by the frequent visitors in the French Quarters. She was a young lady that was loved by the patrons.
Men were always vying for Aja's attention and asking her out for dates. But Aja was a hard catch and not really looking for a man. Her heart was focused on her family and her children.
Aja was very family oriented. She took great pride in being the primary caretaker for her 2 children.
But one night in the fall of 2014, a handsome customer approached the bar that caught Aja's eye and seemed different from the rest. 30-year-old Brandon Guidry.
He is tall, handsome, beautiful smile, very endearing and very charming.
He started talking to her like the way New Orleans men talk is something, it does something to you. You know, what's up, baby? You know, like that.
Also known as Real One, Brandon was a local rapper who had made a name for himself in New Orleans.
In New Orleans, the music industry is very popular. It's a large part of the culture. So anyone involved in that aspect of the culture can really seem to be important.
Brandon had not quite had his big break, but definitely was building up momentum. And so there was this era of him that I'm going to be the next big thing on the scene.
They both were very fun, outgoing people, and they kind of connected on that almost instantaneously.
Brandon asked Aja to grab a drink with him after her shift, and she couldn't resist.
By the time her shift ends, they move it on to a separate location to continue the conversation because she's intrigued. She's drawn in by Brandon and by his conversation and by his personality.
Brandon was a lyricist and understood how to use his words to project an image and that image of charm.
Aja was really invested in Brandon's music career. She was fascinated by what he was doing, and so she fell for that kind of life.
Aja was falling fast for her new man. Brandon didn't just make her feel loved, but also protected.
His street persona of Real One kind of took on this bad boy image. And with that bad boy image, it meant that not only am I not disrespected, I don't allow anyone that's close to me to be disrespected as well.
Aja was intrigued by Brandon's demeanor and his presence and his ability to protect and provide.
But little did Aja realize Brandon's protective nature was masking a dangerous temper. March 21st, 2015. It's just after 4:30 a.m., and the air of fun on Bourbon Street has turned into fear, with 2 shooting victims fighting for their lives. When first responders arrive, they identify the victims as 28-year-old Grant Moore and 25-year-old Bruce Timms Jr.
You have one with a gunshot wound to the back. You have another one with a gunshot wound to the arm and the leg. It was unclear of whether subjects were going to succumb to their injuries or not.
The 2 victims are rushed to the nearby hospital for emergency treatment.
The clock is ticking for police to get to the bottom of why someone would fire shots in the bustling French Quarter. Was this a random attack or a targeted hit?
It's possible these 2 victims could have been caught in the crossfire.
For someone to try to do a shooting out there, you know, they really don't care about their life or anybody else's.
In the fall of 2014, 23-year-old bartender Aja Doucette was head over heels for her new boyfriend, up-and-coming New Orleans rapper Brandon Guidry.
She was so caught up into Brandon Guidry, his charming appeal, his talent and skills in music, being that he was known for his lyricists as a hip-hop artist. They began to fall in love.
Everything seems euphoric, almost feels like a honeymoon phase.
But Aja and Brandon's honeymoon phase would be short-lived.
Brandon was admittingly a very jealous man, and that can often lead to violent and aggressive behavior.
March 21st, 2015, New Orleans, Louisiana. The party is over on Bourbon Street as police fight to save the lives of shooting victims Bruce Timms Jr. and Grant Moore.
People generally feel safe when they're on Bourbon. It's considered one of your safest areas.
Yeah, I mean, 24/7, Sunday to Sunday, there's always tons of people out there.
It is highly unlikely that gun violence would take place in this area. Those types of crimes are not typical in the French Quarters.
As the victims are rushed to the hospital, word of the shooting begins spreading throughout the community.
When I got the phone call that Bruce had been shot, I was hysterical. I can remember just crying and screaming that it just couldn't be my son.
When detectives arrive at the scene, they too are taken aback by this brazen crime.
There was a lot of blood. So it was quite different to see, Bourbon Street in this fashion. This is normally just a good time, partying, drinking, walking around type of area. It's a little shocking to see it as a crime scene.
Detective Johnson and his colleague get straight to work, looking for evidence and putting out feelers to local businesses for surveillance.
Detectives were able to find 4 9mm casings that they were able to obtain from the crime scene. Those initially are what you're looking for to see and match up the firearm that was used as well as where those casings came from.
Detectives also make contact with an eyewitness to the shooting, hoping he can shed some light on what happened.
I spoke with a witness who just happened to be right there at the location, and they described just the eruption of gunfire out of nowhere.
The witness says he was leaving a bar near Bourbon Street when he heard the initial shots ring out.
He ducked behind a nearby car for cover, and when he finally looked up from behind the car, he observed a man waving a gun, pointing it at 2 subjects a few yards away from him. The man fired 2 more shots before running away.
When detectives asked if he's able to identify the man, he just shakes his head. He said it was dark outside and it had happened really fast.
The eyewitness says that's when he ran over with some other bystanders to begin rendering aid to the victims and called 911.
He was still shaken up from the incident.
Just then, detectives received some promising news. The manager of a nearby bar has surveillance footage of the crime pulled up and ready for them to view.
Detectives are running against the clock because we know that evidence only lasts so long. People are only willing to talk for so long.
Detectives thank the eyewitness for his time and head over to meet with the bar manager, hoping the surveillance will give them their first lead.
While reviewing the footage, detectives felt like they struck gold. They are able to see the exact angle of the shooting.
The detectives were able to watch the incident as it occurred. While reviewing the footage, the detectives identify a black male who ran up to the victims and firing at the 2 victims.
I'm talking beeline. He's coming straight towards him. He pulls out a gun and starts shooting. After the shooting, he starts running away from the camera.
Seconds later, several bystanders surround the 2 victims, desperate to help. But not everyone in the footage expresses that same level of concern.
So as the detectives are reviewing the surveillance footage, they notice a female individual.
She was walking past the crime scene on her cell phone.
The woman seems completely unbothered by the chaotic scene just feet away.
The whole time she's walking, she's holding the phone up to the ear like she's reporting back to somebody.
Surprisingly enough, the bar manager identifies the woman as one of his employees, 23-year-old Aja Doucette. And that's when a light bulb goes off. He says the shooter looks eerily similar to Aja's boyfriend.
The owner of the establishment informed me that they've been dating for a little while. He was a rapper.
Unfortunately, though, he doesn't know the boyfriend's name.
The next step in the investigation was to basically get him identified. We had to locate Aja to speak with her immediately.
The manager is able to provide detectives with the address where Aja lives with her family.
Police were hoping that she could give them more information about her boyfriend. She could be the key to cracking this whole case wide open.
This isn't just some pickpocket. This isn't some like global. This is very serious, okay?
March 2015. New Orleans police are investigating a brutal shooting in the French Quarter that has left 2 young men, 25-year-old Bruce Timms Jr. and 28-year-old Grant Moore, fighting for their lives in the hospital.
It was unbelievable. Bruce was never in any kind of trouble, so I just didn't understand how that could have happened to him.
After speaking with a local bar manager, detectives have their first lead.
He said the shooter in the video looked like the boyfriend of one of his employees, but he did not know the boyfriend's name.
Detective Johnson and his partner know they need to speak with the employee, Aja Doucette, as soon as possible to find out more information about her boyfriend.
The owner of the establishment was able to give me Aja's information, her address. We had hopes that she would identify him, or maybe if she could give me like a background as to what this whole thing was about.
As the sun comes up over New Orleans, detectives head over to Aja's residence to speak with her. When they knock on the door, Aja's mother answers.
She seems totally shocked to hear about the shooting. She tells them she doesn't know where her daughter is.
All she knows is that Aja asked her to watch her kids for a while without any explanation.
Aja had kind of been in and out of her mother's home, but nothing to raise any red flags because Aja did work at night as a bartender.
The detectives asked the mom if she knew Aja's boyfriend. The mom replied yes.
She said his name was Brandon Guidry. She said that they've been dating for a little while. She said he's an all right guy, but she know that he has kind of a sketchy past and he's into some things in the streets.
Finally, detectives have the name they've been looking for.
At this time, they pull out a bolo on Brandon Guidry and Aja Doucette.
Back at the station, detectives do a background check on the alleged shooter.
Detectives learned that Brandon Guidry has a past conviction of an illegal carrying of a firearm.
He was more of kind of a street guy. Always kind of had like a little chip on his shoulder. Brandon was a troublemaker.
And when they pull up Brandon's mugshot, it's a match for the man in the surveillance footage.
Detectives are pretty confident Brandon was the shooter.
Seconds later, an officer comes in with some surprising news.
We got a call from Aja saying that she'll come in and come talk with us.
She heard the police were looking for her in connection with the shooting, and she was ready to talk with the detectives.
After Aja arrives at the station, Detective Johnson decides to take the first crack at getting her to come clean about her boyfriend's involvement.
Okay, let's do this. Let's start this up right. Okay? This isn't just some pickpocket. This isn't some like global. This is very serious. Okay?
Detective Johnson begins the interview by pulling out photos of the surveillance footage.
Who's that?
That?
Mm-hmm.
That's me.
All right. Who's that?
That's my friend.
What's his name?
Ashton.
Who?
Ashton.
Ashton?
Ashton.
To Detective Johnson, it's immediately clear that Aja is lying.
Now, we all know that his name is Brandon. I even told her that, look, I know his name is Brandon. I know his name isn't Ashton, but she was just trying to cover for him.
Who's Brandon? You don't know Brandon?
She told me his name was Ashton.
So you're the only way you know that guy in that picture is Ashton. That's all you know about him. And how long you been knowing him?
A couple of weeks.
I told her, I said, look, you don't want to be wrapped up in something like this. you didn't shoot him. You're just dating a guy who did something bad. But she didn't want to hear that.
Now, the problem with that is, I already know you're lying to me. Now, I don't understand why you're lying to me. Why would you think I would ask you if his name is Brandon? Because I already know his name, Brandon. And you know his name, Brandon.
He told me his name was Ashley.
Okay.
I'm not lying.
So you never heard of that name, Brandon, before?
He told me
Name Brandon before?
He told me
That day.
Are you convicting me of doing the shooting?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
You think that's the only way that you can get in trouble?
No.
Okay.
There are other ways, but...
All right, then. So that's what you need to be thinking about. Don't try to outsmart me, because you're going to lose this battle.
Right.
Detectives know Aja isn't being entirely truthful with them. But at this point, they have nothing to hold her on.
At some point, she got up and she walked right out of the interview room, said she wasn't going to say anything to me. And I told her she'll see me again later.
The next day, as New Orleans police continue scouring the area for Brandon, detectives receive tragic information from the hospital.
They hear the upsetting news that Bruce Timm has passed from his injuries.
Never something you're going to get over. You can't. He's my son, and I constantly think about him. He definitely was a helper and a good friend. He was a protector. He's always been the light at the end of the tunnel for me. He's been, my smile.
Fortunately, doctors expect the other victim, Grant Moore, to make a full recovery. He's ready to speak with detectives and help get justice for his friend.
They want to speak with Grant Moore to better understand what took place at the shooting, whether there was some other motive behind this crime. Did they have some type of beef?
This whole incident is senseless. It was not worth it. He could have just let this go.
March 2015. New Orleans detectives have just received the tragic news that one of their shooting victims, Bruce Timms Jr., has succumbed to his injuries. Bruce's loved ones are devastated.
He wasn't supposed to die like that. He wasn't supposed to be taken away from me at 25. So, it's a continuous, unfortunate affair here. It goes on and on.
Fortunately, the other victim, Grant Moore, is in stable condition, and he's ready to aid in the fight to bring Bruce's killer to justice.
When I arrived at the hospital and I spoke to the surviving victim, he had just learned that Bruce had died. He kind of felt responsible for what happened.
Grant was emotional and distraught that his good friend had passed away. A lot of anger and resentment, wanting someone to pay.
No one thinks that when they leave their home to go and hang out with friends, that will be the last time that they see that person.
Detective Johnson and his colleague ask Grant to tell them everything he remembers from the night before. Grant says it all started when an unknown male began arguing with him outside the bar around 3 a.m.
He was accusing him of flirting with his girlfriend.
Grant was completely taken aback by the accusation.
He had been talking to a lot of different girls that night, but none of them mentioned having a boyfriend.
Grant said he then went inside the bar to pay his tab. But when he came back out, the man was still there waiting for him.
Grant tells police the male sprays him in the face with mace.
He is in excruciating pain, face burning.
Grant had to fight back. He could not believe that this guy was taking it to the next level.
Seconds later, Bruce came running out of the bar to help break up the fight.
He would do anything to help his friends. So when he heard that his friend was having a fight, his natural instincts was to go outside and check, see what was going on. So he was there helping him.
He was standing in between them, trying to stop him, but he couldn't. They were just kind of going at it.
Eventually, with the help of some other bystanders, Bruce was able to break up the fight, and Grant's attacker and his girlfriend took off in the other direction.
Both Grant and Bruce thought the altercation was over.
About an hour later, around 4:30 a.m., they decided to call it a night.
Grant tells police they were walking about a block from the bar when the same man from the fight returned. But this time, he had a gun and was ready to use it.
Grant stated bullets were flying everywhere. He was terrified.
He said he heard his friend crying out in pain, and he just prayed that they would make it out alive.
Detectives show Grant a photo of Brandon Guidry, and he's able to confirm Brandon is the same man from the night of the shooting.
He immediately identified, that's the guy that shot me.
He's upset, he's sad, he doesn't even have the time to mourn over his friend because he wants justice.
After speaking with Grant, detectives are now more eager than ever to track down Brandon Guidry.
We searched for him. We had our SWAT team go looking for him. They couldn't find him.
Detectives released his photo to media outlets, hoping that someone would come forward with a lead. They asked the community for their help.
Detectives also begin monitoring Aja Doucette's social media page, in the off chance she'll post any clues about her boyfriend's whereabouts.
At this point, police were willing to try anything.
The detectives are shocked when their long odds strategy actually pays off.
Aja actually posted that they were in Miami. It's pretty silly that they decided to post it on social media. You would think that they would kind of be a little covert with it, but I don't know, these young people, they love social media. They put everything on there.
New Orleans police put out feelers to their colleagues in Miami, and it doesn't take long before they get a hit.
Detectives finally get a break in the case that Brandon was located at a Miami hotel.
Authorities head to Miami to confront the elusive couple. Has Aja been helping her boyfriend all along?
She would not give up anything that could get him in trouble. She definitely had his back from the beginning.
August 19th, 2015. Miami-Dade police are helping New Orleans detectives locate Brandon Guidry and his girlfriend, Aja Doucette, inside a Miami hotel. Authorities believe Brandon is the gunman behind a deadly shooting in the French Quarter, and that Aja has been helping him evade police.
They have their guns drawn. They're knocking loudly. They're banging on the door, advising the suspects inside to come out and open the door.
When no one answers, investigators decide to use force to enter the hotel room. Although there's no sign of Aja, police soon have Brandon in their crosshairs.
When we made entry inside the hotel, he ran, went and tried to hide. It took a little while, but we finally got him out.
I don't believe at that time he was really taking the police nor the detectives seriously. Brandon came across as very arrogant, very sure of himself, almost as if his arrest was just a formality.
As authorities prepare to extradite Brandon back to New Orleans, they're surprised that they haven't found Aja at the hotel with her man.
Based on her social media post, they were expecting to find her in Miami with Brandon.
We learned that Aja was there with Brandon Guidry inside that hotel for a while. But by the time we got to him and it was time to hit the hotel and get him, she was already gone. She was on her way back to New Orleans.
Officers locate Aja at her home and take her into custody.
He had been on a run and she had kind of been enabling him during that time. There was probably this false sense of safety that we're okay and that we're untouchable. And I think that moment kind of brought her back to reality.
As Aja is en route to the station, detectives are finally interviewing her boyfriend, Brandon Real One Guidry. But they don't get very far with him.
My plan was to show Brandon the footage, but when I walked in the interview room, he was standoffish. I didn't even get a chance to get to that point. He looked at me, shook his head, and basically started kind of cursing me out a little bit and told me he wasn't saying anything. He wanted his attorney. So he refused to give me a statement, and he was brought over to lockup.
I don't believe that he ever really took into consideration that the charges would actually go beyond just him being arrested and questioned at that moment.
Now that they have Brandon in custody and evidence that Aja knew where he was all along, detectives decide to sit down with her for a second time, in hopes she'll give them a more truthful account of what she knows.
Investigators had clearly struck out with Brandon, and so their best hope of making any treadway on the case was hoping that Aja would talk. She had been his ride or die throughout this whole ordeal.
Detectives tell Aja that not only do they have surveillance of the shooting, but they also have obtained surveillance of the fight that happened just a few hours before.
On the video, you can see Aja, she's there with Brandon. At some point, you can tell an argument started between Brandon and our surviving victim. At some point, Brandon pulled out pepper spray and pepper sprayed our victim, and they started fighting.
When detectives interviewed her for the first time, it was clear that she knew that Brandon had gotten into an altercation with the two victims. But she didn't say anything about it in her statement. She tried to hide it.
The detectives tell her that this is a time for her to share what she knows and stop protecting Brandon, and that she would avoid prison if she was truthful.
Regardless, Aja still claims she knows nothing about what happened that night.
Aja, she admits to being outside of the bar and is able to recall the fight, but denies being able to recall anything after that time, and says she had been drinking a lot and doesn't remember much from that night.
She would never give up that she actually saw the shooting. She couldn't do it. She would never tell the truth about what happened.
Detectives ask Aja about the social media post she made from Miami the day prior to the arrests.
Why did she go to Miami with Brandon if she wasn't trying to help him evade the law?
You all were not just in Florida on a weekend getaway to spend time with one another. You all were there in an effort to help hide him because of the crime that he had committed.
Aja admits driving Brandon to Florida and getting a hotel room the day after the shooting, but denies that it was in any effort to help him evade the law.
She said that she received a call from Brandon asking her to drive him down to Miami, Florida. There were no reasons given. She packed up her kids, let them stay with her mom, and she drove Brandon to Miami, Florida with no questions asked.
She said the entire time they were driving to Florida, they never talked about anything. They just had the radio on.
So my thing is, if your man is asking you to drive him somewhere, we're women. We want to know, like, what you mean drive you somewhere, especially to Miami, Florida. Of course, I'm going to be asking questions. I just don't believe that she didn't say anything for the whole 12 hours and just let the radio play.
Detectives aren't buying it.
It was all over the news, and clearly he was a wanted man.
She took him in that car. She paid for the gas. She paid for the food. She paid for everything and got him out of town.
Because she wasn't the one that actually shot the gun. I believe for her, she felt like, well, there's no way I would ever be charged. I'm just being there for him. There's no crime against using money to pay for a hotel room. There's no crime against going and visit him.
But Aja is sorely mistaken. Police charge her with accessory to murder after the fact. And if found guilty, she could spend up to 10 years in prison.
After learning that she drove him to Miami and thinking about when I talked to her in the interview and she lied to me and told me his name was Ashton, when she knows that was not his name, that pretty much made her just as involved as Brandon.
Now, the hardworking mother's fate is in the hands of the court.
Aja didn't seem to consider the impact of her decision.
She still had his back. which is crazy to me, but she still had his back. And she would do anything for him, that she would cover for him. So he wasn't even worried about her coming and talk to the police because he already knew she wasn't going to say anything. So he definitely used that to his advantage, even so far as to ask her to bring him all the way to Miami. She has kids here. She has a job. He doesn't care. He just used her for whatever, whatever would benefit him the most.
August 2015. New Orleans police finally have 30-year-old Brandon Guidry in custody for the shooting that left 28-year-old Grant Moore with serious injuries and took the life of his friend, 25-year-old Bruce Timms Jr.
I felt like I got answers. So, yeah, I was grateful for those things, but it didn't make me any happier. Not at that time, it didn't.
In speaking with Grant, police have determined that the motive for the shooting was jealousy.
Brandon decided to let his feelings get involved as far as a man flirting with his girlfriend. He got into an altercation with him. And then after he left, it's like he just still had it on his mind to hurt that individual. So he came back with a weapon and he shot and killed the person that he wasn't even in an altercation with and gravely injured another.
Also in custody is Brandon's girlfriend, 23-year-old Aja Doucette. Even though Aja didn't pull the trigger, she still helped her man evade arrest and misled police in an effort to protect him.
She helped cover up a murder. She might have not knew the specific details, but I'm pretty sure she had an understanding that Brandon was the one who committed the shooting.
She was lying for him, so she was definitely helping him after he committed this act.
For his role as the trigger man, Brandon has been charged with second-degree murder.
I think this is a guy trying to show off that he's a tough guy for his girlfriend, and he took it way too far.
Something so small as a scuffle or a guy being upset that someone was flirting with his girlfriend can lead to someone's death.
Aja is charged as an accessory after the fact.
So I think it was fair because she was pretty much as culpable as him for this incident.
On April 26, 2016, in a surprising turn of events, Aja decides to plead guilty. She is sentenced to 8 years in prison.
Aja took a plea deal because at that point, I don't think she had any other choice. She knew she was looking at a lot more time than 8 years. So it was in her best interest, I guess, at that point to take a plea deal.
Aja is a perfect example of how one bad decision can change the entire trajectory of someone's life. Even to the end of it, she still valued his freedom over hers. And unfortunately, it still took her away from being there for her children.
As for Brandon, he decides to take his chances at trial.
Brandon, while in the courtroom, he still had this demeanor that he didn't do it. He even shouted out at one point that he did not shoot and that it was someone else.
And even after pleading guilty in her own case, Aja decides to take the stand in Brandon's defense.
She still had his back, which is crazy to me, but she still had his back. And, the family have to watch someone sit up there and lie, trying to cover up for somebody who killed their loved one.
They did not either say anything to me or express remorse.
Once closing arguments have concluded, the jury wastes no time in delivering their verdict.
It took the jury less than an hour to come back with the decision of guilty.
Brandon Guidry is sentenced to life in prison without parole.
He received such harsh punishment because there was no remorse shown at all.
For the family of Bruce Timms Jr., the moment is bittersweet.
I remember them screaming, almost like a scream of being relieved. It kind of stuck with me. They'd never bring back their loved one, but I know that they felt good to know that there was some justice that was served.
when you make a split decision to take someone's life, you really have no idea of the impact that you're causing on more than just that person that you're taking.
If Aja Doucette hadn't been so blinded by love for her man, Bruce's family could have gotten justice much earlier. And Aja herself wouldn't be having to pay the price for Brandon's crimes.
When Aja decided to cover for Brandon, she gave 8 years of her life away. All she seemed to focus on was that relationship and the loyalty to her man.
She had multiple opportunities to come forth and advise authorities of her involvement in the incident. She could have just told the police what was going on, and now she's there missing all of these valuable years.
Honestly, I don't think that she's a bad person. I really don't. I think that she just loves this guy and she got involved in something just strictly off of love. You know, and now she's in jail and now she has to be responsible for the decision that she made.
There is no better feeling than having someone in your corner. When your man doesn't just say he'll always have your back, but he actually shows it. It can make you feel loved and safe. But there's a line. And once that line is crossed, and there's no going back, is standing in his corner really worth risking everything?